there's only one part, there's only one function of the psyche. There's only one function within all of us that is corruptible, and that is the mind. The only part of us that is corruptible is the part of us that creates thought, right? This is really important because what that means is all the inauthentic junk that we've inherited only relies and takes place in our mind. Now, it could be unconscious. The ego is generally formed from 90% contents that we've not even chosen ourselves. And this is something that's really important. We believe that we're free, but if we're not doing the work to increase our awareness and to see what is in the unconscious, we're being run by many thoughts that aren't even our own. Now, I don't mean this in a really extreme, like conspiratorial way. I just mean this like our parents, when we grow up, they might just tell us something. They might tell us a story about the world. They might tell us a story about who we are, and we internalize it, right? That's corruptibility straight away. We don't even necessarily realize that we've become corruptible. It could be that we read a story in the news and we create a stereotype about a certain type of person. And then when we meet that type of person, we react in a certain way. We've become corruptible. This information from the external has taken place in the mind, and then our direct reality is affected by it, right? The same is true. The same is true when it comes to identity. We've been told a story about what we are. We believe a story about what we are rather than necessarily the reality, because we all have a mechanism within that understands truth. And when I talk about corruptibility, this is like the noise, right? It's like the high level thought. It's like, it's noisy. You know, we kind of, if you were to look at the mind as like a group of people, you know, this level of external that has been internalized is like a group of people shouting in a room. Everyone's trying to kind of talk over each other. Everyone's raising their voice. Wisdom and truth is a lot more subtle. So when we think about ego and we want to discern what is ego in a certain situation, generally as a subjective experience, it's going to be quite loud, right? It's going to be like, oh, I'm right in this situation, or whatever, you know. It's going to be, yeah, I'm great, or I'm no good. It's going to be quite invasive. Whereas truth and the true essence of who we are is a lot more subtle. It's a lot quieter. And it kind of surfaces through the noise. The reason I talk to this is because we can become so corruptible to what we're told. And that doesn't mean like even a theory of what we're capable of and what we're possible, you know, within the human experience, but even corruptible by information that keeps us in a state that keeps us vigilant and alert, so that we are almost kind of unable to really understand who we are, because we're on a state of high alert and we kind of might have a fearful worldview based around that. That's a bit of a tangent. But the point being, the journey of spiritual growth is a journey of truth. The ego is an experience of a story. It's an experience of a false reality that we've created about who we are. If we're ever confused, am I acting from ego? We can ask ourselves, is this something that I can see is based in language? Is it something that I can see is based around a belief, around a story about who I am? Or is it an authentic surfacing? Is it a kind of subtle and very clear and very precise feeling from the heart or from the center of intuition? So we are looking through the path to really look at the inauthentic part of ourselves, and that requires a lot of self-honesty, right? Because it's actually not so easy to confront these parts of ourselves always. If we're in a particular ego trap, for example, if we're feeling prideful, I feel like that's relevant for me at the moment. I think pride is a big area for me. I can get really defensive, and like when I'm defensive, and when I become aware that I'm being defensive, letting go of that almost feels like some type of death in a way, right? So to expand on this, right, as I weave through, when we have the conceptual, right? So when we have a false identity based in story, and we identify with that. So we're talking like the story is what we falsely believe is our deepest, truest self, right? We're actually convincing ourselves the story is us. We're convincing ourselves. When we believe that to be the case, a threat to that is going to feel like a threat to your entire existence. Reactivity comes because we almost feel like, oh, in this situation where I feel like I'm right, I'm conscious of this kind of tip of the iceberg. If I let down and I surrender to that, that part of me has to die. This illusion has to die. So the more I am identifying with this illusionary self, the more I will be afraid to let go and surrender. But it's only in letting go and surrendering that we actually realize we don't sink, we float, and that the ego is such a small part of the psyche.